to retweet a funny meme because I knew there are people out there that are going to look at that as terribly racist, and I didn't want to be associated with it. And I sat there for a second thinking that to myself. And then I was like, I can't retweet it, but I can't do nothing. I have to say something here because there's something seriously important happening. I'm being self-censoring because of the state of culture, and it's fucking terrible. It's basically an infringement of free speech. It's just a clandestine one. So I went into the comments and I said, I wanted to retweet this, and I stopped before I could. I wanted to like it and retweet it, but I couldn't. And I wanted to just openly say that I felt like I couldn't. And one other person said, yeah, man, same with me. Everybody else was too afraid to say even that. So what do you think? Was I a bitch for not retweeting? But I did say what I felt and what happened openly.
I mean, I don't want to say that you're a bitch, you know, like I feel like that's a little harsh. That's like one thing I try. It's one thing that I'm working on. And I mean, it's easy with you because you're you, but like strangers, you know what I mean? When I see somebody like in a mask still, and I don't know them, like part of me is like, this fucking idiot, you know, but I don't want to do that. I just like, whatever, man, you know, like now when they start doing the, you should have to wear a mask, you should have to get a, you know, a little shot.
Yep.
Then, you know, then the full fury comes back, you know?
Yeah.
Then I get like, I've had some like hangups about this because I don't want to be like happy when people die, you know? But if you were like pushing the vaccine on people and now you're like having, you know, really coincidental heart attacks and things like that, then I mean, I'm not going to say I'm happy that you're dead, but fuck you, you know?
Yeah.
You get what, you know, you get.
If you were one of those,
you get what you asked for.
If you were one of those Keith Olbermann type motherfuckers that was like shaming the people that wouldn't get it, saying that they were stupid for having questions about the science and the novelty of it, you know, that's all reasonable shit. And if you were punishing other people and ridiculing other people, and quite honestly, trying to stoke the mob against them because they fucking were. They wanted society and the full force of government forcing it down everybody's throats.
Yeah.
You know, and if the government couldn't make a law or send an armed person to your house to make it happen, they wanted society to shame us into it, you know?
Yeah. See,
and I don't know how different that is than yelling fire in a crowded theater. You're at least according to the college kids today, inciting violence. And that's what they were doing. 100%, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
To say that we were endangering, that people who didn't get the vaccine were endangering everyone else.
They're constantly inciting violence against people.
Constantly.
I mean, you know, the whole fascist, well, what do you do to fascists? You know, what is the example through history that we have set to do to fascists? I mean,
burn them like the Salem witches, man.
Exactly. But to tie this back into what we were originally talking about, I don't think you're a bitch, and I don't.
Thanks, man.
I don't think that anybody who maybe the little touch of bitch is that you know that it's not good. But I still don't think you're a bitch.
Yeah.
What I think is that doing that is bad. I do think it's bad. I don't think if you think something is funny, you're not a racist, so fucking retweet it.
Yeah.
So what I think is that people who know should do that. They should be like the brave ones and say what they want, and be damned with what the consequences.
Yeah.
And I try to do that. I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes even I won't say the N-word on this podcast, mostly out of respect for you, and I don't want to get yanked off of YouTube. But I think, honestly, this is my honest opinion. I think that people should be saying that word like on a regular, but like, I don't think you should be calling like hatefully black people that word.
Sure.
But take the magic away from it. You know, that Chris Rock bit, I love black people, I hate N-words.
Yeah.
It's a great fucking bit, man.
Yeah.
And
well, you were just talking earlier about the bottom of the rung of white society
exactly.
that as white people we're more familiar with than other races. And I didn't say it at the time, but I was thinking it just the other day. I was in the car with my wife and we were talking about something I can't remember, and she used the word WT, and it's white trash, white trash. But we use the abbreviation WT, and we know what that means, and we don't have any problem saying that, and nobody really does. And if a minority person said that to a white person, even spitefully, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not fighting words exactly, but we all know what we mean by that.
And I just even if that non-white person is saying you're white trash to a person spitefully, if that person is white trash, then I don't care. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Like maybe it hurts the white trash person's feelings, but stop being white trash. Elevate yourself.
It's one of those things where whether you're talking, well, I'll just use the white trash example for a second. There isn't any. It's like I can't remember what politician it was, but in the 90s, I think it was, when they were tirading against porn, and they were like, "Well, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it." You remember that? That was the argument. It was like, how can we legislate?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that exactly. I'm just trying to think of who said it. But go ahead.
But that's what I think of when it comes to white trash. It's like there isn't any defining guidelines, like how many boxes you have to check to fall into that category.
When you see it.
You know it when you see
it. I think a lot of people make fun of that guy for saying that, but he's absolutely right. You can look at, a Renaissance painting of a naked woman, and that's not porn. And then you can look at hardcore pornography, like a gangbang scene or something. That's porn. It's like, if you act like you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, you're a fucking liar, or you're stupid. You're like really, really, really stupid.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely value. I tweeted something out the other day, and it reminds me of that. It's that science is constantly asking people to ignore their senses, including their common sense, in favor of evidence, bodies of research, statistics, things that you can't fucking see, things that are not real, but if you can see something and how it works, they'll tell you, no, that's not actually how that works. It's like, I think that it is. I think that that is actually how it works.
Yeah.
And that just reminded me of that.
Well, while you were talking, I had this memory of going to the museum in Cincinnati, which I love that. I hate Cincinnati with a deep, fiery passion.
I've heard good things about Cincinnati recently.
Well, it was downtown Cincinnati that I'm referring to. I had two experiences with it.
Yeah.
One was trying to go to the museum down there and trying to find anything to do or any place to eat. And it's like, no commerce, there's no people, and it's dangerous. Yeah. I was surprised. Like, what in the fuck kind of downtown is this? And then I stayed at a hotel on the way to my honeymoon when I got married the first time. And it was near downtown. And it was the trashiest, worst hotel experience I ever had. I told you about it before, but my ex-wife gets out of the car. We go into the hotel. She's still wearing her wedding dress. And the guy behind the counter was not sitting in front of the counter. He was sitting in the closet behind the counter with the door open because he had a TV back there. And he was listening to some like raunchy comedy sketch or whatever, where there's like curse words and shit in the middle of the lobby of this hotel. And when we go to check in, he looks at my ex-wife, and he looks at me, and he's like, "You have a good night," in this weird fucking sexual way. Like, this guy knows what's up. And then we get to the hotel room, and it's the trashiest fucking place ever. And I thought for sure there was cameras watching us, so nothing happened that night. Nothing happened the night that I got married. Anyway, I tell you all that because my impressions of Cincinnati have not been good. Not been good.
You thought that there was legitimately a chance that there were cameras?
100%.
That's crazy.
100%. I kind of felt like we were the only people in the hotel, and there was a Saw-like situation that was getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
Where the doors were going to bolt shut.
Play a game.
And the fucking yeah. So my impression of Cincinnati's not been good. But I tell you all
Little did you know that it was a Saw scenario, and the scenario was being married to her for like however many years. That was your Saw scenario.
Yes, it was, man.
Oh, man.
It sure was. Boy. Anyway.
Yeah.
Just to say that the museum down there is pretty dope. And it's in this place.
What kind of is it, an art museum?
Art museum, yeah. And you got to drive up this hill, and it's up on the top of the hill, and it's this old like a classical style Roman building with the columns and the big, grand entryway and steps. It's an awesome place. And the very first room when you walk into it is ancient Egypt, and it's so cool. God damn, it's so cool. I love it.
That's cool.
But I've been there a few times, and one of the statues is this. I don't know if it's a classical statue or a modern statue, but one of the statues is like a Venus type statue. It's a woman, and she's naked, and she's sitting on a pedestal, and she's in the middle of one of these rooms. So you walk in, you can do a 360 around the statue. And one of the things I noticed about the statue is very, very lifelike, you know? And they put those two little dimples above her butt. Do you know what I mean?
Got turned on by that?
Well, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted to bring up. I fucking do like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those two little dimples.
I know exactly.
I don't know where they come from or what they're all about.
It's but I don't know what it is either.
But that's what I want to ask you about. It's like the question comes up. It's like, why are men attracted to cleavage? And then people say like, this is a weird the conversation, but people have said that the cleavage shape reminds people of the buttocks.
It's the front butt.
It's the front butt.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to make you think of the sexual act of from behind.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, like, missionary seems like so natural. And I wonder if like animals are doing it doggy style, right? Every fucking animal, even chimpanzees, right? So did we invent missionary, or were we in the old days, were we doing it doggy style like all the other animals were? Was that our primary method of
It's a good question.
Procreation?
My natural assumption would be that yes, we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And then as our higher functions, you know, when you start to like love someone, maybe you just want to look at them.
You want to look at them in the eyes. Yeah, there's something hot about that.
Yeah. But who knows? I don't know.
So I guess this is what I'm thinking is that these things that are like triggers for, male sexuality or whatever, visual triggers, they all seem to be related to doing it from behind.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if you've heard psychologists make this argument, but there's all kinds of fetishes, and this.
Oh, I know. I've been on Pornhub. It's been a while, but
especially with boys, right? With men. I don't know how it is for women, but if you have,
dude, they like reading novels and shit,
if you have an experience that's like meaningful and powerful, a sexual experience when you're young, that sometimes elements of that experience get kind of ingrained into your psychology. And that's how they say like people have foot fetishes because the first time they had sex, their girlfriend jerked them off with their feet or something or whatever. I don't know. It's like you just get one thing like that gets ingrained in you, and now you have a fetish for the rest of your life.
I have an opinion that is kind of like that, but I also think that continues. And I think that the more you watch porn, maybe not for everyone, but definitely for a lot of people, the more you watch porn, the less exciting it gets, and you just have to keep finding something new,
Yep.
And then, eventually you're watching like, trannies or something like that, it just makes me think of like Alex Jones, supposedly. And I mean, I saw the pictures. It looked like he had a tab open on his computer that was like T-Girls was the site or something like that. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, to each their own.
No, I don't think it's good. I think that I'm on record on this podcast saying that I think that porn is bad for people. I don't think that you should watch it. I think that pornography has driven our culture to bad things,
Yeah, I agree. I can see it in, my own life over time. So I agree. So I don't know where we were going with this, but I guess I just wanted to say there's something about those little dimples on the woman's back.
Yeah.
And I can't really figure out why it revs my engine. But when I saw that on the statue, I'm like, well, look, isn't that curious that they included those little dimples, man? Isn't that curious?
It is curious.
Yeah.
That little story makes me, it's like a good, I don't know, example of why I think maybe displaying public nudity, even in terms of art. Maybe we shouldn't do it. You know,
Okay.
I'm being completely serious.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't paint that or that you can't have that in your home privately, but I don't know. Maybe there's an argument that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from.
I think
you Puritan schmuck.
I think it's particularly weird in places that are supposed to be religious, like the Vatican's gotten baby dicks everywhere.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
Yeah, you say that, but I was going to say as a counterexample, there's something that I admire about this, and I don't know, I've never been to Europe, but this is the story that in Europe they're way more comfortable with sexuality. It's not like nakedness.
Look at Europe.
Nakedness is not explicitly sexual, but because this country was formed by Puritans, we've kept everything covered up. And anytime you see any kind of nakedness whatsoever,
nakedness may not be inherently sexual, but it's pretty fucking close.
But does it have to be? I guess it does when you're a teenager.
I think I can't see any way around that. It does. I think that it does. I mean, yes, there are situations where you're going to be nude and you expect the person or the people in that scenario to not make it sexual, like at a doctor's office or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, if I'm walking down the street and some lady's dress gets blown up and I see her ass, and even though maybe, the highest polite form of myself would not think at all, I just look away and be like, I didn't see anything.
Yep,
it's a completely non-sexual. No. When I'm going to be like, whoa,
yeah, you are.
All right. The fucking wind, man.
Lady in the red hat.
Exactly. And I don't think that I'm evil for that. If I make her uncomfortable, if I say what I just said out loud or something and but I think if a guy sees that, it's going to be sexual. So it is kind of inherently sexual.
It's completely involuntary.
So it's inherent.
Yeah. This is what bothers me about when Joe Rogan says over and over again that in the future, we're going to be able to read each other's minds and intentions.
Yeah.
And that's going to solve all the world's problems. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Can you imagine if everybody was aware when you were 12 years old sitting in fucking Spanish class, if everybody was aware of your thoughts and intentions, I would have been in the principal's office. I would have been expelled. Every fucking boy would have been expelled.
I don't know that I believe that that's true.
Would have been expelled?
No. What Joe Rogan says.
Yeah.
I think there was a point where I would have been like, yeah, man, that's coming. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I don't know that that's ever going to be really possible.
But if it were, do you think it would be valuable?
I don't think it would be good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good. I think it. So like I said, with that dress blowing up scenario, you have, a person could see that and lose their mind and do something awful, which is what I think liberal people think happens, you see a girl wearing a short skirt at a dress and you're like, rape, it just comes over you.
Yeah.
But in reality, what happens is you have that part of you that's like, oh, I like that. And another part of you that says, okay, but control yourself, and I think that breaking down those borders of everyone knows everything. It's oh, we all feel this way. It's natural. The guy next to me is thinking the same thing. Everyone's thinking it. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I think that part of what holds culture together is having that striving to be the higher self. And I think that if we give each other this license to be oh, everyone, we all think the same things. Yeah. And we should be controlling those things too.
Yeah. You should have the ability, you should have the opportunity to control your behavior, right? And you shouldn't be blamed for your thoughts. You shouldn't be guilty because you had a thought, because first of all, we can't control them. Like we just said, have you ever had a thought that was intentional?
No,
never.
You don't
not
author
once.
Your thoughts.
You do not, but you can control how you synthesize them and how you act on them. And if we were guilty, like in that situation with the lady's dress blowing up, if everybody could hear the thoughts of the men walking by the street, there'd be some guilty parties, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's a terrible idea. I do want to circle back to the power of words, because I feel like we got away from that too quickly.
Okay. I don't even remember us talking
well,
about
you would
that.
talk about the N-word, and you said,
oh, yeah, okay, gotcha.
there shouldn't be any sacred cows. We should take the power away from the words like that, which I don't disagree with.
I'm not 100% sure that I think that there shouldn't be any sacred cows, but it's hard to explain, man. It's like if you have a microculture and you decide that this is our sacred cow and somebody does it, I don't know. I kind of think that you should be able to kick that person out. It's like these are our core principles of our society, of our little micro society, and you're violating it. You have to leave, you know?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that that's bad, but
I want to tell
this
you
overarching sacred cow thing where you have to think the exact same way we do. I agree with you. That's bad.
I want to tell you a story that happened to me in high school that it's going to be hard for me to even tell you the story because I have to be tiptoeing around everything now. But I want to remind the audience that when I was in high school, right, in the early 2000s,
it was a different time.
The world was a different place, and race relations were far better than they are today. And I was on the bus, and I was sitting towards the back, and there was two kids that I went to school with that were sitting in the back with me, happened to be black kids. Both of them were very nice. We had totally friendly relationship. We knew each other for a couple of years. Never had any issues with them whatsoever. I want to say that the context of this was, all right, you know how today we might say something like, bitch, please. Replace bitch with the N-word.
Yeah.
And that was a common phrase back then. N-word, please.
It's still a pretty common phrase. Right? I would imagine amongst the bees, it's probably still a you know, they say that still for sure.
Well, I'm going to admit to having said it.
Oh shit.
To them.
Oh.
Thinking that it was
you're canceled, dude.
Thinking that it was perfectly fine and also funny.
Yeah.
In the context.
And they just like
one of them was immediately deeply offensive.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't going to fight me over it, but he was like, you know, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember being so taken aback, so surprised that I would get that reaction from somebody that he didn't know me well enough to know my intentions, and my soul was not, you know, saying that in hate or anger at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that the context, he was letting the context completely go in order to be offended.
Yeah.
And I was so confused for days by that. And I felt terrible. I was like, man, I don't want him to think that I think any of that. Like this was just a fucking joke. This was just a thing that you say. And I was dumb enough or bold enough to say it to black people. And it did not go over, at least with one of them, did not go over.
The other one didn't care?
No, not at all.
Nice.
And it makes me think that the kid that did had a racist household, like had a household where that was ingrained in him, that if he heard that word, that he was supposed to be militantly angry about it, and no matter the circumstances.
So I've seen a ton of videos online where there's some kind of public altercation and some white person says the N-word and the black person in the situation beats them up.
Yeah. And
I imagine, like in that scenario, the person who got offended, I mean, I'm not saying that person might have beat you up, but let's just say that they would have. Mm-hmm. The person who wasn't offended, I think, is probably embarrassed by that person. Mm. And I at least hope that they're embarrassed by that person, because if you watch this member of a community that you're lumped into behave like a child, and it's like, we have no emotional control. Somebody says a word to us and it's like a Manchurian candidate, you know, trigger, and you like have to assault this person. No, if somebody calls you the N-word, even spitefully to your face, get over it.
Yeah.
Be mad about it. Be mad about it. Don't assault them, because if you do, you deserve to go to prison.
It's not a special insult because you used that word. Like, your intention has everything to do with it, regardless of what language you use. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their eyes. You get it from the context. If you have a reason to be angry, then you have reason to be angry, regardless of what words are being used. The fact that we put special emphasis on that word is kind of why I brought up white trash earlier, because there's no comparison. And people will say, well, yeah, but but black people were slaves in this country, and they were
So were white people.
discriminated upon, to an extent that you can't understand. So the power that word has, you can't understand. Now, I argue neither can they. Those kids that I went to high school with have as much connection to American slavery as I do.
Mhm.
And that amount is fucking zero. Those kids lived in a better neighborhood than me. We rode the bus together. We dropped them off. I knew where they fucking lived. They lived in a better neighborhood than me. They wore better clothes than me. Those people were so distant from American slavery that they have no idea. But this one kid was justified in his mind to, throw away a friendship, to treat me like I was that I intended some harm, which was clearly not the case.
Yeah.
And this has gone completely amok today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to point out to the audience, especially if you're younger, that the early 2000s wasn't that long ago. And I was completely surprised by his reaction. Today, nobody would be surprised by that reaction. Everybody would think it was just.
Yeah. And everybody would be more surprised at the other person who wasn't offended. They would be like, you're a, Tom or that.
20 years.
Yeah. 20 years. You don't think it's a long, in a lot of ways you do think it's a long time, but in other ways you don't. And to move culture as much as it has, it makes you wonder, did culture always move like that?
No, I can't imagine.
No, man. I don't know. It's hard to,
like if you go back, if you go a step into my wheelhouse for a second and you think about like ancient history, they can date archaeological sites based upon the pottery.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily meaning that far, but go ahead.
The pottery didn't change for hundreds of years. The style of pottery was exactly the same until something happened, right? Something significant that changed the culture. The culture in ancient times lasted for long, long, long stretches.
Yeah.
Now with social media and with television and entertainment, that's driving how quickly we're changing, right?
Yeah. I definitely am not going back that far though. We can't go all the way back to ancient times. We have to, I'm talking about I would say from the 1800s on. I wonder if at 1800 was culture moving as quickly as it is now. And I think that there's a good chance that it was.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I do think there was huge things happening, the invention of the automobile and electricity, like those sorts of things would have been revolutionary changes. But even so, I think that until the invention of the radio, until the invention of television,
I think it's earlier than that. I think that the Industrial Revolution and people being centered in cities, I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, I think that those were revolutionary changes, but I don't think that there were as many of them. I don't think that it was changing as quickly. I just think it was catastrophic shifts in the culture that were happening all at once,
You think that back then it was catastrophic shifts happening all at once?
Yes, revolutionary changes happening in spurts.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not convinced of that because you don't need like a constant development of technologies for there to be a constant development of ideas,
True.
And a spreading of ideas. And that's why I think that once you get people, so honestly, we're going back even further than the Industrial Revolution. Once you get people centered in cities, I think that culture is going to start moving more quickly. Obviously when you're spread out, it's not going to.
I think so, but you also have to remember that living in a city requires a higher level of cohesion, right? You can't have a bunch of people who have nothing in common living together because they're going to do nothing but fight.
Yeah.
So when you get together in groups, you have a lot more people, so you have a lot more ideas, and I get that. I think that's true, but I also think there's huge amount of social pressure to conform, which is a force against the change that would otherwise happen. But now this is a good thing to bring up because people say in the old days, when our parents were kids, and there was 4 channels on television, and everybody watched the same news every night, and everybody watched the same movies when they came out because there wasn't a ton of them, and there wasn't a ton of like avenues for entertainment and for spreading of culture. So everybody was kind of on the same page culturally because everyone had the same thoughts. Everyone was contending with the same challenges because there was only 4 channels, man. There was only one opinion, and everybody had it, you know. And that's gone away. You know, people. It's gone away to some degree to our detriment because we don't have anything in common anymore. You know.
Yeah.
And don't you think that that's tied to the proliferation of racism and hatefulness, political ideology, you know, because nobody feels like we're brothers anymore. So we're just enemies. It's easier for us to be enemies and to see each other as enemies because we're not family. We're not, you know, brothers.
Yeah. I mean, I think that division is like the main goal for you know, the people who want power, politicians, like they spend a lot of time dividing people, because if they united, it wouldn't be good for them. I mean, I saw something recently, I retweeted, I don't know if you saw it, but there was some kind of leak from Amazon that says that workplace diversity discourages unions. And that's been like a practice that's been something that they have been instituting for like a while. And I talked to somebody on Twitter who said that that's actually been known in like agriculture, the agricultural field for a long time. If you get a bunch of Mexicans, they form unions. They start, you know, there's a bond, there's, you know, but if you get a bunch of Mexicans, a bunch of Guatemalans, a bunch of Hondurans, a bunch of El Salvadorians.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
They don't form unions as much
because they can't agree on nothing.
Yeah.
Because they want to hate each other and pretend they're different.
Now you take that scenario or that bit of information that's a tried and true tested, you know, thing that little groups of people don't unionize. It puts the whole immigration thing in the United States in a completely different light. And I think it puts it in a light that is more truthful in what the purpose of all the mass immigration is.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because the low-hanging fruit says that Democrats support immigration both legally and illegally because they believe that minorities coming into the United States will vote Democrat. That's the low-hanging fruit. But the sinister Klaus Schwab, you know, perspective might be closer to what you said. It doesn't matter if the minorities vote Democrat or not. If you bring them in, then there'll be less cohesion socially, and so the powers that be will be able to control the population more easily.
I think the only Democrats or liberals who really believe that the open immigration stuff is, you know, out of compassion. The only people who believe that are, I don't want to say that they're stupid, but they're not people who pay attention to the way that things really work. That's like the most, like, if you believe that politicians are really that ideological, you're gullible. You're just, you know, there are maybe a few of them who are very ideological, but most of them are swamp creatures. They're trying to get things done. They're trying to move behind the scenes and make things happen. Mostly for themselves, for their own best interest. So, do
you think that maintaining or even encouraging the power of the N-word specifically, do you think that the government today has an interest in maintaining that?
The government? Yeah, I mean,
the government, media,
the people,
the whole
who
complex
shape culture. Yeah.
Because when we were kids and like gangster rap was gaining popularity, there was, and there still is, of course, but there were tons and tons of white kids that were starting to gravitate towards Black culture. We were no exception, man. And we were rapping those lyrics. We were rapping those lyrics, you know, whatever, with our fucking CD Walkman on the bus, singing fucking Brenda's Got a Baby. Shout out to Tupac.
Fuck Tupac. Tupac has a picture of himself naked in a bathtub.
Yep.
With like gold chains forming a diaper over him. Tupac was. I'm like 98% sure that Tupac was gay.
That sounds like something Kanye would do, though.
No.
A gold diaper?
No, maybe a gold diaper. But just like you should see the picture. It's super gay. Like,
yeah, but if I had abs like Tupac,
no,
I'd have naked pictures of me everywhere too, man.
I don't know, man.
Tastefully done.
I think
tastefully done.
I
oil
think you
paintings.
need to go back and look at some Tupac.
Yeah,
The dude puts out
maybe
kind of a homoerotic vibe.
Maybe that's what happened with him and Biggie.
They fucked.
Maybe they were fucking.
Biggie definitely fucked Tupac if that happened. I mean,
yeah, well, yeah, probably.
But I don't think so. I think that Biggie was super straight, as they say. As a man says.
The point I'm trying to make here is that I remember the relationship between white people and black people in the late 90s and the early 2000s was culturally way, way better and more accepting. And we have gone nothing but backwards. And I don't know when it happened. I don't know when it started. I want to say it started with Obama, but I'm not really sure when it started. But things started getting worse and worse and worse. And
Obama made race relations in this country. I mean, maybe it started before him. It probably did start before him, but he really kicked things into overdrive.
It's a shame, man. It's a real shame.
Yeah. And now, he did a lot to make race relations worse. And he's also done a lot for like the trans cause by marrying a trans woman, That's like it's funny. The first she was the first woman, but that's big. The first trans first lady. They don't even talk about it. Surprisingly, MSNBC and so they don't even talk about Michelle being a trans woman.
It's funny you say that because yesterday my wife's friend came over and she brought me a book to read.
Yeah.
And I'd heard of it, but I never read it. Herman Hesse Siddhartha. You know that? So I never read that book. And she's like, this is my favorite book. And I bought you a copy. I want you to read it. I sat down yesterday and I read the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know how many times I read a book in a day?
3 times.
Fucking never.
Yeah.
I read this book sitting on the couch. I read it all day till I was done. And there's a love interest for Siddhartha in the book. And her name is Kamala. And I just have to tell you, every time I read that name, that's what I pictured.
Yeah.
I pictured Kamala Harris and the Buddha together. I know we were talking about Michelle Obama, but it popped in my head, Kamala Harris.
Well, it's a big deal that Michelle Obama, the first trans woman, first lady, huge deal. Don't understand why the left isn't celebrating it more. And Kamala Harris, huge win for sex workers to have a whore as the vice president. That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. I mean, I do not understand why the left isn't celebrating these things more. They're all about the sex positivity. Sex workers are workers too. Kamala was blowing dudes. I mean, you know about this, right? This is not a joke.
Well, this is news to me, so let's hear about it. What was the?
You're gonna have to. It's been a while since I've heard, but like Willie Brown was the guy's name. He was maybe the mayor of San Francisco or something like that, and it's like an open secret that she was his mistress.
Just sucking on his dick.
Yeah.
On his mayoral
and
penis.
she went on to have promotions that she doesn't deserve.
Yeah.
She's not a smart person. Like when you listen to her talk, she's not a smart person.
Well, she's not a good speaker. I think that's true. I can't
I don't
judgments.
think she's a smart person.
Yeah. There's like a lot of people, like autistic people, for instance, who are fucking brilliant and can't string a sentence together. You know what I mean? So I don't want to write it off that say she's dumb. She definitely should not be on a podium.
You remember the Ukraine-Russia thing?
Yep.
Russia's a big country. Ukraine is a small country. Yep. She's dumb. I'm not impressed by Kamala Harris at all. Not by her, public speaking, her publicity skills. Not that either, but just she doesn't seem that bright to me.
Yeah. While we're talking about Kamala, let's pivot to Biden for a second, and let's talk about the
first president who's a vegetable. That's impressive, dude. I'm telling you, the left needs to start celebrating these things,
breaking down barriers, man.
Yeah.
About the documents that they've been finding. So this is very strange to me. It's very strange to me that they would have this happen with Trump. make a big deal about it politically, try to use it as another way of preventing him from running again, right? Which they've been doing, every fucking angle they possibly can. Trump's got top secret documents. Let's see if we can bust him on it. This is how it seems to me. And then shortly thereafter, it happens to Biden. I thought that was very suspicious. Secondly, they said that it was his own attorneys that brought it to the attention of the authorities. Biden's own attorneys that brought it to the attention of the authorities. And that they knew about it since last November or something like that. They've known about it for a long time. And then all of a sudden today and yesterday in the news, I'm starting to hear more and more articles creeping out saying that Biden is not going to be a contender for the Democrats for re-election. He's not going to be a contender. They're starting to cast doubt on having him as their candidate. And I can't help but think this is all on purpose. Yeah. The Democrats are throwing Biden under the bus. I don't know how serendipitous it is. Did they plan the whole thing from the Trump, from doing it to Trump all the way through now doing it to Biden to undermine him? Or did they do it to Trump and then decide, well, we got a lot of traction with this and we can't seem hypocritical. So let's use this to get rid of Biden. What do you think's happening here, man?
I don't know. That has been my initial thought too, is that they're just trying to get some kind of leverage to get Biden to not run because who the fuck doesn't understand why they don't want Biden to run again?
Yeah.
That's the most obvious, but because it's the most obvious what it is.
I can't. When we hear those sorts of stories, there's the story that we're being told, and then there's something behind it. That's the real reason, and I just don't wonder what it is.
Yeah,
I
feel like the establishment that Biden is doing the bidding of, I have a hard time believing that they would have to go to that level to get Biden not to run again. To be perfectly honest with you, I feel like the people who are really calling the shots, whoever they are, the shadowy organization of people, the bureaucrats who are really calling the shots. I have a feeling that they could probably just be like, hey, you're out,
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, but they have lots of better reasons, let's say, to put pressure on Biden. They could say, hey, we got these photos, we have these documents, whatever. But they don't want to damage the party. So they're going to put another reason out to the public.
I just have a thought
that
just popped into my head. And maybe it's that the long game is to give Democrats some kind of air of credibility. It's look, Trump had these documents and they don't care at all. It's no big deal. But we found out that our president, our guy had them and we ran him the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
I
see that too. We're the party of
it's all a charade.
It's a charade.
I don't believe any. And maybe some people, maybe some Democrats would be like, yeah, that's the case. What you just said is not that far fetched. I think but I just don't believe it.
Well, here's the thing. If the apparatus of government and of media collude to ensure that Biden doesn't have to defend or take responsibility at all for his business relationships in China, what happened with Hunter Biden and the laptop, and his relationship to Ukraine, to be able to push all of that under the rug, which they did, and then say, but you had documents in your garage, you're out. That's strange, man.
Yeah, it is strange. I also think that maybe the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, maybe there's too much splash from that. It's too much shit that's going to land on other people.
Yeah.
That's because it seems like there's some serious shit on that laptop.
Yeah.
Just
seeing those videos and pictures of Hunter without a shirt on, smoking crack off hookers' asses.
Yeah.
It's at what other era could a president's son have that kind of press and it not ruin him?
Yeah.
In what other era?
In an era where people have been watching porn for 40 years.
I mean, you go back to when we were kids, what happened with Bill Clinton? Say what you want about Bill Clinton, but he was a popular president and not just among Democrats.
Yeah.
And, he got a blowjob in the office and it ruined him. I mean, not sort of.
Yeah. It didn't, but it could have.
Yeah,
potentially could have.
It could have.
It was fine.
But if fucking Chelsea Clinton was doing blow off hookers, and that
I don't
came
know,
out,
man. Maybe even then that
would have been sympathetic. You think?
Yeah, and I just feel like maybe it was far enough along where it wouldn't have been good, But
you think Chelsea Clinton has those dimples above her buttocks?
Maybe. I don't know. I just I barely know what Chelsea Clinton looks like. I've seen her. I know what she like long dark hair.
Yeah.
I know what she, but I just can't really.
I think. Yeah. Well,
visualize it.
I don't want to say anything negative. I'm sure she's fine.
Yeah. I'm sure she's not. Oh, you mean physically, just attractive wise?
I said what I said, Kyle.
I'm sure that she's a garbage person.
I was thinking about.
Sure she's just like her parents.
I was thinking about Meghan McCain. Was it Meghan McCain?
Oh, another garbage person.
Yeah, but I think like when she was younger, I'm pretty sure she was a pretty girl.
Oh, I mean,
yeah, I haven't seen her in ages.
She's got a little thickness to her. At this point, but I like that.
Yeah,
I think that Meghan McCain she's attractive. She's attractive, but I just don't like her.
Yeah.
Just defending that old dead Warhawks legacy.
Let me ask you a sensitive question.
Oh God,
how thick is too thick, Kyle? Does it depend?
It depends on things,
Yeah. Those are the things I want to put on air. What are the things?
Like ratios and how things,
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't want to be mean, but there's just a certain point where
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, there's some truth in that. It's strange how we do that kind of arithmetic and those calculations in our minds, those ratios that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I also think, at least for me, like a really beautiful face makes up for a lot. For me.
To a certain point.
For me.
I know exactly what you mean, but only to a certain point. I'm sure you would admit that.
Yeah, only to a certain point. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And like a really crazy nice body makes up for a lot too.
It sure does.
Probably more, to be honest with you.
Let me ask you this question. You know how like beautiful people have a tendency of not developing their personalities or characters very well because their lives are generally easier. They don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's like, try finding
That's why I'm so shallow.
try finding like a really beautiful person with a good sense of humor or something.
It's not impossible.
Not impossible, but it's difficult. Do you think that now where was the question in this? I was going to try to contrast. Do you think that like the butterface type girl with the rockin' body but like hideous creature face, or like the really beautiful girl but she's just a little bit too fat? Like which which of those girls? See, I had the question, but I'm losing. I'm trying to compare those two scenarios. Which of those girls develops the better personality, do you think?
Honestly, I think that having like a body, so there are some women who just have bodies that like men are drawn to,
Yep.
And I think that having that kind of a body is maybe not as powerful as having, well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. So am I comparing a less attractive woman in the face who's got one of those bodies and a beautiful woman in the face who's like overweight?
Like overweight to the extent that most people are like,
I would imagine that the lady with the crazy body has like less personality.
Yeah. You're probably
because
right.
I think that a woman who looks like that, not great face, crazy body, has almost as much like social clout as like the beautiful woman.
I think you're right, man. I used to work with this girl who will remain nameless. She was very nice. I worked with her for a couple years. And she was like an Irish girl. She was kind of short, but she had like the most ridiculous physique. It was like not real. It was like the kind of physique that you would think only exists with plastic surgery. It was a little bit ridiculous, but she was not a pretty girl,
Still had dudes beating down the door.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
As
I recall.
I really do. I think that there's some close level of parity between that woman and the woman who's got it all.
So there must be some kind of like evolutionary calculation that we're doing, that subconsciously we're doing. It's like, because you're looking for things like symmetry. That's where that's part of what we refer to as beautiful. We look for symmetry, and you look for like what kind of genes your kids are going to have if you would procreate with them. And if you get like a girl with like she's like toned and muscular, and she's, you know, got childbearing hips and all that sort of stuff. I think part of that must play a role. It's like, you know, those genes I'd like my kids to have.
I do think I agree with you. But actually, this is something that I thought back when we were talking about, you know, the cleavage being a simulation of the backside and things like that. I used to put a lot more credence into those kind of explanations for human behavior. Now I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense, but I don't really know if that's why. You know, like I could imagine it not being why. You know? I mean, I do think that there are a lot of those explanations that make perfect sense. And I could definitely see them being the case, but I'm also not 100% on that kind of stuff anymore.
I'll tell you what's weird when you get to my age and you've had kids, you know, it's like I've been through all of the most intense years of my, you know, puberty and sexuality. I'm over like the most intense part of that. And there's so much of that is like, an attraction to breasts, to cleavage, to boobs, to big old boobies. You know, it's like there's so much of that has such an intense attraction and appeal. And where's I going with this? Oh, then you have kids, right? Then you have kids, and you watch the breasts used for what they're meant for. You know, and it's a very strange thing, man.
I think. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I just personally, I don't know. I don't have kids. Hopefully someday. But I think that you're too in your head, you know?
Oh, 100%.
Because I know for a fact that a lot of men don't have that feeling. It's like, no, I still like those.
No, I still like them too. But what's strange is like wondering if the reason I like them so much, if the reason why there's so much of an attraction is because I used to suck on my mom's big old titties, you know?
Jesus.
You know what I mean? That's the weird thing. That's what I'm trying to point out. There's a weird thing, you know? It's like there's impressions that get made on children when they're young that last a lifetime. And I wonder if there's a weird connection there. I wonder.
Maybe. I don't know. I think that
because you would associate your mom's breasts with all kinds of comforts, you know, as a kid, you know, it's warm. That's where your nutrients are coming from. You know, the feelings of satisfaction that you have, and that milk. Have you ever seen a baby milk drunk?
No,
dude.
I mean, maybe I think I know what you mean.
When an infant feeds and it's done, it lays there. His eyes will roll around. It looks like somebody just took heroin. I'm not kidding you. Babies get milk drunk, and when you look at that, and they're just laying there asleep on mommy's, you know, chest or whatever, it's like the most beautiful thing. And you're looking at this kid, and you're thinking, I want to feel like this kid feels right now. It looks like the most perfect bliss. If that's the kind of impression and association that you have as a kid that will never go away, you know, is that why we like titties so much? That's the question.
Could be. I just wonder, like, how does that become a sexual thing? Because there are like
hormones, puberty, the wires get crossed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why do people like feet? Why do people like caca porn? I don't know.
Yeah, those things seem less natural.
Natural, yeah.
But yeah, maybe it seems more natural because of the things you're talking about. I don't know.
I'm going to ask you a controversial question.
Oh God.
Do you think that if like you know, we were talking earlier about it, you have an early sexual experience and it has to do somehow with feet or shoes or something, and then for the rest of your life you have a little kink with feet and shoes, stilettos particularly? So do you think if you had like your first sexual experience, homosexual experience, let's say your first sexual experience was a homosexual experience, do you think that kind of impression could make you gay?
100%. That's what I think. I mean, you like that. That's pretty much what I think. I don't think that people are born gay. We're getting into like my super controversial opinions at this point. I don't think people are born gay. I think that people are groomed into being gay a lot of the time. I don't think that's 100%. I think that I legitimately believe that porn can make people gay. That you start watching things and you're just, you know, this horned up teenager and you're seeing flesh, and, you know, I believe that can happen for sure.
So when you say that, I'm actually kind of imagining like, you know, when the brain is still developing and the connections are still being made in the neurons. And
Yeah.
at some point your brain stops. But when you're a teenager, it's still like that. It's still, you've got all that neuroplasticity. Your brain is still forming all those connections. And I can imagine that. I can imagine somebody, you know, having that association of those two neurons, like,
yeah.
And then you're gay.
Yeah. It's not like you're watching the porn and specifically like looking at the guy, but you're seeing him, you know? And I think that that's the truth. I think that you're taking all of that in, regardless of whether in the moment you were looking for dudes or not.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I want to tell you a story about Jose, the guy from Twitter that we both have talked about before. Before I do, what was that last thing you just said?
That you're taking it all in.
Oh, yes. One of the things my mom used to tell me, and I always thought it was for her, it was clearly a religious thing, but I always kind of laughed at it. And now I wonder about it. She used to say that, like, you have to be careful of what you take in. Mm. And then she would, for me, as a kid, it was always like, don't watch horror movies. Yeah, right. It's like, you have to be careful what you take in because that's the devil. Like that's, I think that's, you know what I mean? So there's something to that, maybe. But let me tell you about this, this Jose thing, because it's kind of heartbreaking. So I have a friend on Twitter that
he doesn't like me very much.
Yeah, well,
because I have opinions like the one I just put out. I'm sure he would not like that opinion.
Yeah. However,
he seems like a nice guy.
He's a reasonable guy, and he will talk to me through some things that most people wouldn't. And I appreciate that. I think
he won't talk to me through some things that people wouldn't, to be fair.
I think that's because he's not a kid. He's older than us. So he's not, you know, thin-skinned. But let me tell you what
I disagree.
Let me tell you what he told me. Somebody on Twitter, a fella, some remark about the trans, I don't know what to call it, the transsexual, transgender situation that we're dealing with culturally. And he said that it really struck him hard that some person who's gay would challenge the trans situation because when he was growing up, it was so difficult for him to be gay in the society, in the culture as it was then, because it was frowned upon and it was taboo and it was very hard on him. And I can imagine 100%, I can imagine how difficult that must be. And trans people, in his mind, have the same situation today. And I think there are differences, and we can talk about that. But this is what he told me that was so fucking heartbreaking, man. He said that when he was 8 or 9 years old, he knew he was gay. And I wonder about that. But then he says something.
I don't doubt that.
But then he says something else. He says that he had a best friend growing up. So I'm imagining you and I growing up. And he said he was in love with his best friend. And he didn't exactly know it. He wouldn't admit it to himself because he said he didn't want to be gay. He wanted to be like everybody else. And everybody does, especially when you're kids. We all want to fit in. We all want to be like everybody else at that point. And this poor guy wasn't. And then he says that as a teenager, I think he was like maybe around 13 years old, he realized that he was gay, mm-hmm. and that the feelings of love he had for his buddy were romantic. And then I'm thinking to myself, this guy can't tell his friend, because then he'll lose his friend, right? He can't tell his friend he has romantic feelings for him. So he's going to lose his best friend if he's honest with him. And even if he's not honest with him, he has this like phony relationship with him that's always a secret. And I just thought that's fucking heartbreaking, man.
I agree that is sad.
God damn.
I have a feeling that I see it slightly differently than you do, though.
Well, I want to hear that, but I do want to say one thing, that everybody has the heartbreak. Every human being learns at some point that you are going to be infatuated with somebody or like somebody, and they're not going to have any interest in you. Like, not everybody's going to like you back. And that's a very, very hard thing. But imagine that's your best friend.
Yeah, that sucks.
So tell me how you frame it.
Well, like I said, there's no evidence that people are born gay. The gay gene, there isn't one. And people have looked, man. People, they wanted it to be there, so they were fucking looking.
Yeah.
So I don't think people are born gay. If he realized, well, you said that he realized he was gay at 2 separate points in that story. So there's got to be some kind of reconciliation there on what that means. But if he felt that he was gay when he was 8, I would imagine that something bad happened to him before he was 8.
I wonder.
Somewhere in that, that 8-year period, he had some kind of sexual imprinting that caused that to be, what he was attracted to. And then, so it's that makes it even sadder because it's not some natural thing. He was taken advantage of. He was hurt. He was abused by some older person.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Almost everyone I talked to who was gay had something bad happen to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Almost every single fucking one. And the people who say that they don't, honestly, I don't believe them a lot of the time because I think that they see that association and they're like, no, nothing happened to me, So I'm comfortable making that assumption. So that makes the situation even sadder. It's not a natural thing. You were hurt. And it caused you to be in this relationship with your best friend where everything is a lie. You can't, but that being said, I think that when a person starts to realize that they have those things, I don't think it's good for culture to be like, it's fine. It's no big deal. No, I think that maybe you should try to remedy that. Maybe you should not want to be gay. And I don't think it's bad for people to say that. I don't think we should be pushing gay people off roofs, but I think having a person who is gay and has conflicting emotions about that, and they want to be normal, like you said, everyone else is normal. Maybe they shouldn't want to be gay. Maybe they should try not to be gay. If you can be programmed to be gay, then maybe you can be unprogrammed. And these people who say that like conversion therapy is bullshit, well, when you start pumping out into the culture that conversion therapy is bullshit, people think it's bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, so I think there's 2 different scenarios that we'd have to think about. The first one is when they're younger. The second one is when their brain's done developing. So we talked about those connections, those neural connections being made. So I wonder, like, okay, so I'll admit to some things that are controversial. I remember the first time I met a gay fella. And I had no reason to dislike him, but I was weirded out by him. And I was a kid, but I was weirded out by him because I knew he was gay, and I didn't understand it, and I was weirded out by it. But like watching porn growing up, we're the first generation to have access to porn like we do. My brother, who's 5 years older than me, had a big box of VHS porn. It's like that's not the same. It's not the same, man.
Boner Jams 94.
The point is, I've seen it. I've seen gay sex. I've seen it. So when I saw it for the first time, my reaction was not for me. No, thank you. It's like a big bowl of cooked spinach. Not for me.
I love cooked spinach,
that was my immediate impression. So imagine that's, I don't know whether that's like natural or socially constructed, that reaction. I don't know. But imagine I'm young and my brain's still developing and those connections are still being made. I'm not settled into my final form. And I have that kind of impulse when I see the gay sex acts. I'm like, nope, not for me. Could I be exposed to, or I don't know, could I be exposed to homosexual interactions and learn to like that and learn to, have that reaction that I once had totally changed because my brain's still flexible. Could it be learned in a situation where your brain is still forming? That's my question.
I think so. Yeah.
And when it's done, when my brain is done, if I'm heterosexual and all those things are done forming, those connections are done, I have a hard time thinking conversion would work at that point of any kind.
Yeah, probably. That's why I think that like when you have kids who are saying that kind of thing, I don't think it's bad to try to convert them. I mean, I just don't, that seems like a logical thing to do. Now on adults, I'm not even going to say that I don't think conversion would work. I think it probably is a lot tougher.
Yeah.
I think but I think you're right. It's probably more likely that it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you have these people who have made it their entire way. They're still gay. They're not going to not be gay.
Mhm.
Their options are to be gay or be celibate.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do have another option. They can be gay and they can also go out and be, what's the word I'm looking for? Activists for homosexuality. And they can make it to where we should expose children to gay people. We should put these ideas in their head. We should put these ideas in their head that they would have no fucking idea about otherwise. And we should be out in the public square talking about how it's good to be homosexual. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't happen. You don't become gay because you were molested. These people are groomers. I even unwittingly, I think that people who go out and are activists for the normalization of homosexuality, I think they're groomers by proxy, to be perfectly honest with you. Again, I don't think that we should be killing gay people. But I just I like that in Middle Eastern countries, I don't like the killing of gay people part. But the idea that there's no way in fucking hell that you would ever have a gay pride parade in Saudi Arabia, I like that. I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm torn about it because I can see what you mean by normalizing. Like, it's like if we had to pick what qualities we wanted to perpetuate as a society, what type of society we want to have in the future. If we can imagine it being better and try to form the path for our future so that we can reach this better future, what kind of things would we want to suppress or keep, under the radar, and what sort of things we want to shine a light on and say, these are the ideals we want to strive for. It's hard to argue that, God, I don't even want to use like lefty language, but I kind of have to. It's kind of hard to argue that the normative qualities are what society has voted on. I mean, the fact that we haven't voted, but you know what I mean.
I won't use leftist. I'll just say normal.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say normal.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as an insult to people who don't fit into normal, but there's a majority of people, and you ain't fucking in it. You're not normal. I don't mean that to be, I'm not trying to alienate you, but you're alienated. You are. I don't support any kind of killing, nothing like that. I think that that's reprehensible.
I think what we're talking about right now, bridges the racist topic with the sexual topic, because normal, it's the idea of normal. I'm losing it. Where was that thread? Oh, people who aren't racist and aren't homophobes, children, let's say, who haven't had enough experience to be either, are programmed to notice different people that are different.
Yeah.
To notice things that are different.
Yep.
Because that's where the information is. And our response to what's different, especially with children, is almost always ridicule. It's almost always, kids poking fun at the one fat kid in class, or kids poking fun at the one, brown kid in class, or whatever it is. And from our perspective today, we look at that and say, oh, how racist. No, there's some biologically there's some biological component, some evolutionary advantage to recognizing differences.
Yeah.
And if I'm living in the Stone Age and I bump into a new tribe, I have to be suspicious of the new person.
100%. I think that, I'm 100% with you on that. I think that the elimination of that, the suppression of that, and you're just talking about what things we should suppress, what things we should put into the light. Well, you look at the things that people are putting in the light right now, and it's fucking concerning, because that is something that they are putting in the light. Don't give up all of that. Give up all of your this is my tribe. You know, these are my people. You can't say that. Me saying I love my people is like a racist thing to say.
Yeah.
More for me than for a black person.
Isn't that weird?
But I think that they even want to squash that in black people. I don't think they want anybody to think like that. And our differences, there are differences between, I would say less so between skin colors of people and more so between like, you know, like I said, tribes, you know, like smaller groups. There are differences between those people, but I would not 100% be willing to say that there aren't differences between people of different skin colors. I'm actually pretty comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that those differences are not we don't need to get rid of those differences to come together. Those differences are good.
Yes.
They're what makes us us. They're interesting. It makes it, you know, you have different cultures and people like, especially leftist progressive type people, there's so much cognitive dissonance going on in these fucking people's heads because
100%.
They're like, oh, I love different cultures. I love traveling, you know, the typical, there are words that I want to say, but I just, you know,
those are the same people that say appropriation.
Yeah, exactly.
Racism.
No, I love different cultures, but we need to squash all cultures. You know, we all need to be one fucking monoculture.
Yeah, exactly. I love differences, but white people are all the same.
Yeah.
You know, I fucking hate
white
that.
people are all the same. And I want everyone to be all the same, you know, like white people are like that. And I guess everyone else is like me. And we just need to, I don't know.
Hey, hold on. I want to ask you a question before I forget, before we move on to a different topic. We're talking about what things we want to shine a light on, what ideals we want to hold, driving toward. And you see like this debate is, and so the culture is shining a light on that. And there's liberals, progressives who would say that we're doing that out of compassion, that we're doing that so that people who are different don't have to feel marginalized and won't be, you know, discriminated against and can be accepted and be part of the society with everyone else. But then conservatives look at that and say, no, what you're doing is trying to make more of them. What you're doing is trying to make more transgendered people, because the only reason you would want to shine a light on that in the first place is to encourage it. You know, what do you think of that? Is it the compassion or is it trying to make more of them?
Is that what conservative people say? Because I
that's
actually
the fear.
Agree with that.
That's the fear, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm always surprised when somebody conjectures that conservatives think something that I agree with, because modern conservatives are fucking lost. They're basically liberals. I mean, modern conservatives are basically modern liberals. I don't even mean that conservatives today are more close to classical liberals.
You're right.
Because they're not.
Yeah. You're right. Conservatives today are the closest thing we have to classical liberals.
But to go back to your point, I do think that that's the point, is encouraging it, making it almost everything in my mind comes back to destroying the smallest tribe that there is, which is the family. And if you get a bunch of people to start pretending that they're men and pretending that they're women, people don't have kids. You start encouraging homosexuality. People don't have kids. Human beings have more children when they're poor.
Correct.
You know, so you start giving people, you know, handouts, things to make them more comfortable, to become complacent. Yeah. Exactly. People stop having kids. They want to break, you know, they don't want nations. They want globalism, you know, but they don't want nations. They don't want states. They don't want cities. They don't want neighborhoods. They don't want families. Everything is aimed at destroying the family. And it's been particularly successful in the Black community. It's increasingly successful in all communities, but boy, they did a real good job in the Black community.
Do you know what's the most disturbing thing about that to me? This monoculture idea and globalism idea. So in this country, I'm going to have to attribute this to John Stossel, because he's who I got it from. He uses this phrase. He says that the United States form of government is to have 50 laboratories of innovation. And I love that. It's like we're a nation, but we're actually 50 nations. And the reason we're 50 nations and the reason why states have sovereignty or supposed to have sovereignty in this country is because we want people to try different things, to try living different ways, to try, different forms of government, to try all kinds of things. And that way the other 49 states can see what fails and what works. And if we have a bunch of different people with the freedom to do a bunch of different things, we're going to be able to capitalize on the best things that are organically coming from all of these various places. That's the whole idea behind diversity, the benefit of diversity in the first place. And there's an evolutionary component to this. It's like if every animal is exactly identical and there's no mutations, when the environment changes, all the butterflies dead. Yep. They're extinct now because there was no diversity, right? We need to have the diversity. We need to have those mutations so that when the environment changes, not everybody dies. Somebody has what it takes to continue. Well, what happens when globalism is achieved? What happens when there's one culture? What happens when there's one government by fiat telling everybody what's right and best and how they should live and how things should be? And there's no more innovation happening anywhere. What happens then? That is a death warrant. We are signing our evolutionary death warrant. That's what that is. Yeah. That is so fucking scary. And these fucking assholes who think that they know best, that they could take the entire world under their wing and make it better for everyone, are the most blind to the facts. The most fundamental fact of biology and of the cosmos is transformation. It's evolution. That's what it is, man. And you're trying to undermine that? Good luck, man. You're trying to be God?
Yeah.
Good luck, man. Good luck, Klaus Schwab and George Soros and all you fucks.
Bill Gates. Don't forget that.
Don't forget that guy.
Fucking dweeb.
The arrogance, man. The arrogance that I can do it better than evolution.
Honestly, he's got a better aura about him, but I honestly kind of put Elon Musk into that category. He says things that are more palatable than the rest of them, but I'm like 99% sure that's the way Elon feels. Just fucking give me the reins, dude. I'll run this shit.
Yeah.
Now, if I had to have Klaus Schwab or George Soros or Elon Musk, I would pick Elon Musk, but I just don't. We've talked about it before. I've got my skepticalities, if that's even a word, about Elon Musk. Kyle. I got suspended from Twitter. Now that Elon's the boss.
Yeah.
I was gone for a week.
Oh shit.
Because
what'd you say?
I said people were talking about what, should there be any like legal ramifications for the people who have perpetuated the COVID thing? And I answered honestly. I mean, I didn't say we should lynch him right now. I said, yeah, after a legal thing.
Of course.
I said what I thought should happen, and it was too much for Twitter.
Well, I didn't hear it, but let me tell you what I think should happen. I do think there should be accountability. I think Pfizer and all of these pharmaceutical companies should be able to be sued, even though the government told them that they can't. They should be sued, and the government should be sued. The federal government should be sued. The mandates, there should be so many fucking lawsuits that the government is wound up in a fucking ball that they can't escape for decades, and money should be paid out. And insurance companies should go bankrupt and pharmaceutical companies should go bankrupt. There should be such serious consequences that nobody ever thinks that it's okay to force medical treatment on people and to release untested medical treatment, globally.
I agree
that
with all of that.
should never, ever be allowed to happen again. People should be punished so that they never think about that. That's a good idea.
I agree with all of that. I think the problem was that I was more explicit about what I think the punishment should be. And honestly, when I got back from Twitter, I made a joke about how the suspension worked. I don't believe any of that stuff anymore. But actually during the week, I kind of did have like a little bit of a change of heart on it. And it's because I think that there needs to be accountability, but the accountability that I was talking about, which I'm sure you guys can figure out.
Firing squad?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anything like that. He did I can't remember the details, but something about burying like beagles in sand up to their heads and seeing how these flies would like eat them alive.
Geez.
Maybe that,
God.
something, but anymore, I just feel like if that was going to happen, I feel like it would require some kind of an international governing body. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the world would have to
Like
be
a
like
Nuremberg trial type
exactly.
situation.
And I don't want the rest of the world to have any say in it, because they're going to come to some conclusions that are complete bullshit, So if it means that none of that stuff happens to them and there's other kinds of punishment, that's fine. That's fine.
Boy. I started reading this book.
Yeah.
Can you see that, guys?
The old
Ayn Rand, The Virtue of Selfishness.
Yeah. How's that going?
I didn't read much. I just read a couple pages and it was blowing my fucking mind, like immediately blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand, man.
Yeah. I mean, I like her too. I definitely don't love her as much as I used to.
Have you read this?
I've read parts of it. I've got a copy of that as well.
I was going to.
I don't think I've read the whole thing. And it's been a long time.
Man, I wish I could find. There's a couple of paragraphs that I would love to just read to you. All right, so you know how Ayn Rand, and this basically what she's saying is, and I just think it's so applicable to the world today, more so than it was in her time. She said that society encourages or pretends to encourage altruism. Altruism means an act is good if it's selfless. If you're doing something for someone else and it has nothing to do with getting anything in return, most people agree, like, yeah, that's good. You should do those kind of things when you can. And I have a hard time disagreeing. But the first time I got introduced to Ayn Rand's philosophy, the example, and I can't remember who told me this. Maybe it's in the book.
Someone drowning?
No. The example was about falling in love.
Oh.
And it goes something like this. Altruism means that you're doing something only for somebody else, not for yourself. So if you have a romantic relationship with somebody and that person is with you altruistically, they love you only because it's what you want, completely selfless. They don't love you, right? But you want their love and you want, them. So they give themselves to you altruistically. Does anybody want that?
That doesn't seem like a good example to me.
It's a great example.
No, I don't think it is a good
example. In what
way?
You see the point. You wouldn't want someone to love you only because they want you to be happy. Only. You want someone to love you selfishly.
Yeah, I think that it's a good example if you don't think about it at all.
Well, tell me what you mean.
Yeah, with love, sure. Yeah. There are certain things that have to be reciprocal, but there are things that you can do that are selfless. And I know that like some people would say, I don't know, I'm just going to pick something easy, like donating to charity, or no, giving your time to charity. Okay. I know that there are some people who would say, well, they're only really doing that because it makes them feel good about themselves. I don't know, man. That's too cynical for me.
So I'll put it differently. It wouldn't matter whether you're doing it specifically for good feelings. What matters is that you have good feelings while you're doing it. That's what makes it not selfish.
I don't know.
Listen, if I was working at a soup kitchen and I was scooping out the soup to the homeless people, and every time I did it under my breath, I'm thinking, you fucking slime of the earth, you filthy fucking bums. If I was doing that, that's altruistic. It's altruistic.
Sure.
And terrible.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't know. You're feeding homeless people.
Yes, of course you're feeding homeless people.
It's not terrible. That's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. But is it moral?
How is it immoral?
Because what I just said, because the spirit of doing it was completely wrong.
I don't think that makes it immoral. I don't think that doing a moral thing out of some kind of weird motivation makes it immoral. It's not a moral thing.
Doing a good thing, immoral, without any love in your heart, doing a good thing.
No, I don't agree with you.
You can.
I don't agree with you.
You can achieve good things and it still be immoral. That's what I think.
Okay, yeah, but I don't. I mean, that has like so many different, yeah, you can do bad things and have good things happen, but that doesn't make the bad things okay.
Right.
But that's not the same as something that, like, you can kill somebody, you can kill a bunch of people to get some kind of positive benefit. That's terrible. hatefully scooping soup into homeless people's bowls is not the same thing. It's not.
No, listen, I think that the love example is the best example. Because it's the most fundamental and powerful force in the world. What example would be better when we're talking about morality than love? What example could possibly be a better example?
Just because it's a good word thought experiment doesn't mean that it makes any sense. I don't think that
it's not about words. It's about what I feel when I ask myself, if my wife didn't love me back and was with me only for me, is that a good thing? It's not good for her and it's not good for me. I wouldn't want it.
Okay.
And that's an example of how altruism is not correct. It seems correct,
in
but
that
is not
situation.
Correct.
Yes, you're right.
Yes,
altruism is not good. I'm not saying that, but Ayn Rand's purpose is that Ayn Rand's argument is that altruism is either never good or doesn't even exist.
Yep.
And I don't think that's true. I think that is clearly not true.
Yeah. I don't know that she says it doesn't exist. And I don't know that I haven't really thought about it, whether I can say if it exists or not. But I think that the love example is enough that I probably don't even have to read this book. I agree with what she says.
I think it's a bad example. But listen, I think you should read the book.
Oh, I'm going to, and I'll talk about it. All right. She says, there are two moral questions which altruism lumps together as a package deal. One, what are values? And two, who should be the beneficiary of those values? Then she says, altruism substitutes the second for the first. It evades the task of defining a code of moral values, thus leaving man, in fact, without moral guidance. So let me read those again. What are the values that we should want? What's good, right? And then who should benefit? Who should be the beneficiary of those values? And altruism says, what does she say? Substitutes the second for the first. Who benefits is what makes it moral, right? You're not defining what's moral. You're just saying whoever benefits from it, that's moral. If it's moral, matter.
So if I take out a local business owner so the mob can start their own, thing, is that I did it for someone else.
Then that was altruistic, by definition, altruistic.
No. That's not what you just said, though. You said if you do something for the benefit of someone else, that's what makes it moral.
Yes.
So that is me killing the local business owner is moral.
According to altruism, yes. According to altruism.
I don't know, man. That doesn't.
The reason
I don't think that.
The reason I bring this up,
I just think that you're lumping too much together under this is altruism and that's altruism
based on what she just defined it.
Okay,
based on her definition.
Okay,
then what you said is
her
altruistic.
definition is faulty. Then
how?
What is the definition? I just don't understand how that
She's saying in order to establish morality, you have to first define what's good, and then you have to define what she said, who's the beneficiary of those values, right? So as an individualist in America, we say that the individual is the locus. So what's good is what's good for me. And altruism says what's good is what's good for somebody else exclusively. And that's what altruism means. There's no arguing that.
But then you could just flip it the other way. It's like you do something for you that the benefit is for you. That's all. That's all moral.
Well, it wouldn't be altruistic even by that definition. If you do something for yourself.
But I'm not necessarily asking about altruism in the.
That's what I'm talking about.
But you were talking about morality too,
from the perspective of altruism. So
from the opposite perspective, from the perspective of the rabid individualist.
Yep.
If I rob and kill another person, it's moral because it's good for me.
No. If it's good for you, then it's not altruistic. It has to be good for them only. So we're in the weeds too much. Let me tell you why I bring this up. Because our society today says exactly this altruism morality, that if what the government's doing is for minorities, right?
Sure.
Right. So if it benefits somebody else, then it's good. And if you question it, you're an asshole.
See, this is my problem with Ayn Rand, is that I understand where you're coming from in that scenario. But when you start breaking it down to like individual interactions with people, I do believe that altruism exists. And
but to your own example earlier, when you said the argument is if you do something selfless and you feel good feelings about it, or you feel good about yourself or something.
That's the reason.
Well, not necessarily the reason, but the fact that exists at all undermines the altruism argument.
I don't know. I just
it's possible to be selfless and not altruistic.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so, but is it
Yes.
like, no, I'm not sure that it is, because you're putting that pin in there that like everything that you do is for you. So you're not selfless by definition. Maybe you can act in ways that are beneficial towards other people, but you just admitted that there's a likelihood that the reason you're doing that is for you. So no, you're not selfless.
That's the argument I'm making. Exactly. So you wouldn't be. So
it seems like you're arguing like both sides.
It wouldn't be altruistic, even if it's like maybe it doesn't matter if you're doing it because you know you're going to get good feelings, or if you do it and just happen to feel good feelings. And that's what's more realistic. You do it selflessly and you just happen to benefit. But the moment you benefit, it's not altruism anymore.
No, I don't buy that.
Well, according to this definition.
Okay. So that's according to that definition. I disagree. I disagree with Ayn Rand.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. And I think it applies to the zeitgeist, it applies to the Gestalt. Can I say that word on the podcast?
I think so.
It applies to the way that our culture is framing the role of the government and the people.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, in relation to mass amounts of people, societies, cultures, I'm okay. I think that it fits. It makes sense. When you break it down, I don't think it makes as much sense. And I think that there are things that people do that they don't like doing. They don't enjoy doing at all. But they do it out of a sense of like duty. You know what I mean? There's like a religious element to that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I just don't think that
you could always argue that there's some ulterior motives. Like when you got to my house this morning, my wife was sitting on the couch. I was drinking my coffee. She had her feet on my lap. I was rubbing her feet. Do you think I like rubbing her feet? I mean, I don't hate it. She's a beautiful girl. She's got beautiful feet, but is that what I want to do? I want to drink my fucking coffee in the morning. I don't want to sit there with one hand trying to fucking not spill coffee on myself with one hand, rubbing her feet with the other. But I love her, right? You can always say, well, you're paying her back for all of the things she's done for you, or you're trying to get brownie points for whatever she's going to do for you in the future. You have reasons why you're doing it. But in that moment, I'm sitting there rubbing her feet. I'm not thinking about any of that.
What are you thinking about?
I don't know if duty is the right word. I guess I just trying to express my affection, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you're expressing that affection for the benefit of yourself?
It definitely doesn't seem that way, but people could argue that it is. Always, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Those arguments don't hold up to me. So when you are being affectionate with a person that you really love, you like it. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's like not really benefiting you at all, you're just like rubbing someone's feet. I can speak for myself anyway. Yeah. I like that. You know, I want to make you comfortable. So I think that there is some element of self, you're getting something from it.
Yes. Yeah, you can see it that way. I mean,
but I don't think that means that altruism isn't real.
I'm not saying it isn't real. I don't think Ayn Rand's saying it isn't real.
I think that she is.
I think it's more nuanced than altruism versus self-interest. It's way more nuanced than that. But she's
not, I mean, she wrote a lot. She's not the most nuanced thinker in the world. She's like, kind of, if you don't agree with me, you're fucking wrong. Yeah, and there's no black or there's no gray. There's no room for gray. It's Ayn Rand's way or the fucking highway.
Yeah.
And that is honestly one thing that I've come to not respect about Ayn Rand.
Well, I appreciate that. However, when I see that in her characters, I love it.
Well, it's like archetype shit, but archetypes aren't real.
Yeah, but it's inspiring something in your soul, man.
Sure. But Ayn Rand she's a person. She's not an archetype. She's a human being, and she's wrong. Like she's, I don't know. Like,
I don't think she's entirely wrong. I think there's a tremendous amount of value in Ayn Rand.
Yeah, I didn't say that she's wrong about everything.
I think the world needs Ayn Rand right now. You know how
I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest.
Well, earlier you were talking about people being bitches.
Yeah,
Ayn Rand was not a bitch, man. Can you imagine if more people?
She was not a bitch, but she was she had steel in her spine for sure.
Can you imagine if more people, like the people today, all this fucking field of cowards that we live amongst? Can you imagine if them all of a sudden wanted to be fucking Howard Rourke? If those people then had a hero like that?
Yeah.
That's the kind of hero that is in this culture. That's toxic masculinity. That's Howard.
Well, he did rape someone, to be fair.
Well, you can't rape the willing,
You might have to go back and read that scene again, man.
It's a controversial scene.
Yeah.
But I think Ayn Rand had a rape fantasy. I think she wanted to be dominated, Yeah. A lot of very intelligent women who are superior to men, like by and large, the men that they meet, I can think circles around them. A lot of those women, for some reason, they want to be dominated. And Ayn Rand strikes me as that she definitely had those fantasies, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
As far as I agree with you that like a lot of stuff about Howard Rourke would be a good like archetype for people to follow at this point. But I do think that there are some things about Howard Rourke and some things about Ayn Rand's philosophy that would, if the good things didn't like really make a difference and pull us in a completely different direction, then the negative aspects of it might pull us into something even worse. I'm not a fan of this like rabid individualism, man. Like to a certain extent, yes. After that point, no.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I do think Ayn Rand's polarizing, and I do think she tries to be. She's not, you can look at her characters, you can see that. They're like caricatures, basically. Mm-hmm. Like Howard Rourke's basically Superman, and Superman is invincible. Not that he doesn't have challenges, but he's not going down.
And Tui is Lex Luthor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I get that. I do think though that type of a polarization.
Tui is kind of Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
like I'll put negatives out there about Rourke.
Yeah,
Tui sucked though. Like there's no positives about Ellsworth Tui.
Also, the women in Ayn Rand's novels were very beautiful, and Ayn Rand was very not. And I think there's something there too. Where was I going with this? Oh, I think that the polarization that and like the kind of top-heavy one-sidedness of her arguments, they're useful, especially useful when the culture needs the other pole. When the culture is so one-sided that it needs to be smacked with the other side of reality, something like Ayn Rand, and this is what I mean by right now. This type of shit would be beneficial. I think it would be beneficial.
There's also something too, though, like the rabid individualism that supports, in my mind, that supports things like trans movements, that supports things like gay movements, and I'm not down with that.
Well, let me tell you what the other side of this coin. You know how and how Ayn Rand talks about, inventing Rearden metal, or going into that old broken down factory and finding that motor. I can't remember what it was now. It's been a long time. Finding that super efficient motor or whatever that was just discarded by this brilliant man, and somebody goes in and resurrects it and does something great. For her, it's always about building. It's always about progress. It's about mankind's ability to shape and form reality as we see fit. It's kind of like recognizing the God in us, which I like. I'm sympathetic to that.
Except definitely not though, because she was an atheist, like a pretty ardent.
Yes.
So not really what you said. But you're injecting that in there.
Well, you're getting me off track. But
sorry, go ahead.
But an atheist who is comfortable attributing to themselves what we would ordinarily attribute to God.
That's good.
It's good. Yes. It's
don't
this,
know.
it's this far away from the mystical intuition. This far away.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean about the creation.
That's what I want to talk about, because earlier, not in this conversation, but earlier, we talked about building something.
Yeah.
You know, building a family, building a community, building a business, and having the ability to honestly shape our reality. And it's something that has been chipped away, like that. The possibilities of that, the hopes and ambitions that people have that we could do that, is being chipped away by culture and government, chipped and chipped and chipped away. It's like we're meant to think that we must be beholden to a Fortune 500 company. We're meant to think we must be beholden to the government. We're meant to think that we cannot on our own build roads or enforce laws. We're meant to think we can't do it on our own. And Ayn Rand says, fuck you. Yes, we can. And I think there's something to that, man. I think we need to realize that we can build whatever the fuck future we want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can craft it with our own hands with the help of our brothers and sisters, man.
Yeah. I mean, I like that too. I don't think that Ayn Rand is wrong about everything. I just think that, like I said, the things in there are things in there that I don't like. And I worry that those things would push us further into negative territories, because they're already so
I see your point.
ingrained in our society already. If we get, like we keep pushing, even so, I would say that Ayn Rand is, more accepted on the right wing, obviously. And the right wing is already so like garbage on the things that make people actually right wing. I don't think that like increasing the rabid individualism, that type of stuff, I don't think they need any more of that.
No,
I think that the right pushing that kind of stuff plays right into the hands of the left.
I agree.
It's like we're divided, we're fractured, and they're just doing whatever the fuck they want.
I agree.
They want that. I mean, it's a liberal idea in the first place.
Yeah.
Like classical liberalism, we kind of hold as like libertarian-ish minded people. We kind of hold classical liberalism up as some kind of good thing, but I don't anymore. Like I a lot is not tired about.
To think it is, we can't get away with it, and even the rabid individualism, as you framed it, we can't get away with. We need it. It's important to counteract collectivism. We need the balance. We can't get rid of it. We need the balance.
We need the balance, but we definitely need to be. So I mean, like right now, I feel like I said, we have the collectivism and we have the rabid individualism, and they're working in synergy to fuck us. So,
that's some weird shit. Let me ask you this question, because you use the word rabid individualism, and Ayn Rand uses the word rational self-interest. Let's go back to the trans conversation for a second. I get your point that rabid individualism, which you could definitely attribute to Ayn Rand, and our founding fathers for that matter, that would want to permit, I don't know if encourage, but it would want to allow the expression of individuality in any way that is natural, any way that you want, that's not harming anyone else. And that includes trans identity or whatever it is. But I'm wondering if Ayn Rand would agree, because she would say it's not rational. Maybe it needs to be rational self-interest. And there's an argument to be made that it's not rational. I don't know if I'm stretching. What do you think?
You're saying it's not rational to chop your dick off?
Yep. That you could argue that.
Yeah, I would argue that.
I saw an article just yesterday that said they're now finding, I don't know if it was one study or what, but they're now finding that hormone therapy that they're giving to people that are transitioning causes depression. And that's one of the major reasons why they do give them medicine and surgeries, is to prevent higher than normal suicide rates. That's what they keep telling us. And yet the hormone blockers are apparently causing depression. Sorry to get you off track.
No, it's fine. I just think that I said this earlier, anybody who believes that the reason trans is being pushed on us from up high, from, you know, the establishment politics, from the media. The reason, if anybody believes that the reason that they are pushing that is, you know, for the benefit of those people, I just don't know what to tell you at this point. The reason they're pushing it is because of the reasons that we talked about earlier, because it breaks down society. It turns everything up on its head. It makes everything confusing. And that's why it's, you know.
Yep. And it makes it more difficult to speak and more difficult to think.
Mm-hmm.
And how's that good?
It's not good.
I was flipping through a Disney book. My daughter asked me to read the other day, and it was there's one of their relatively new musicals, Zombies. They have 3 or 4 of these movies, and it's just a high school. So it's just like a high school musical type situation, but part of the people are zombies. That's what it is. Anyway, the book, when you open up the front page, it has the characters, their names, and underneath their names, it has their pronouns. Oh, geez. Yeah. And I'm just thinking to myself, what in the fuck, man? And the people who speak romance languages, like our friend Jose, when the words are gendered, like, how do you listen, man? If people in the transgender community, whatever that means, if they say that they have a particular identity and they want to be treated a particular way, I don't know that I have any problem with that, especially if we're not talking about children and hormones and surgery. If we're just talking about a person's individual choices and how they want to live and how they want to be perceived. To me, you know, I have less objections to that. But the moment you say we now have to be careful with what we say, then we're talking about language, which is how we communicate and how we think. And it's been working like this for thousands and thousands of years. And it was developed, you know, naturally. You know, it's like we have gendered words in various languages because that's how people have always viewed the world, through the biological binary that they see all around them. And now you're going to tell us that we have to start speaking differently? And I just don't know. I think that's the kind of thing that's disruptive, that's hugely disruptive. It's not the fact that you say, I'm not a boy or a girl, I'm something else. It's the fact that you say, now you have to call me blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to call you blah, blah, blah. You know? That's disruptive, hugely disruptive.
I think that the problem starts way before that. And, you know, this is like good old super right-wing Kyle coming out. But the societal acceptance of things before that led to that. 100%. It's not fucking arguable. You know, people are like, oh, slippery slope fallacy. It's a fallacy. It's not. No, it's fucking real. And just look at the last 20 years if you want to see a slippery slope.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man. This last 20 years has been, maybe every generation says it, but I cannot believe the world we live in today versus 20 years ago.
It's crazy.
I'm not even home here anymore. I'm an alien in this culture. I honestly feel that way.
And it's, it's because, in part, because there is no opposition to it. The people who pretend to be opposition to it are not really opposition to it.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about Lenin with the Red and the White Army and how they co-opted the, you know, that's what it is, man. We didn't even get to talk about it, but all this stuff, did you see with Crowder and the Daily Wire?
No, we got, what are we at on time? We got 6 minutes. Yeah. Let's get into it.
You know, Crowder used to be he used to have his own independent thing called Mug Club, where people bought a Mug Club membership and they, you know, whatever.
Yep.
And he did really well on that. Then he got picked up by the Blaze.
Okay.
And the Blaze, I think, still let him have his Mug Club thing. But he was getting paid by the Blaze too. And then he was leaving I'm not sure of all the details, but he wasn't at the Blaze anymore, and the Daily Wire wanted him. So they made him an offer, $50 million.
Whoa.
And he, you know, there were conditions. Obviously, when you offer somebody $50 million, there's going to be conditions.
Yeah.
And one of those conditions is you can't get us kicked off of YouTube. You know, like, you know, there are rules, you know, we're conservatives and we're against all the censorship stuff too, but this is a platform and we have to operate within their rules. You know, that's not crazy. That's not bad of Ben Shapiro to ask. And if I'm defending Ben Shapiro, you know, shit's fucked up. Ben Shapiro, like this, what I was talking about with they're not really being opposition.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And I'll get to it. So they made Crowder that offer. And also one of the conditions is he doesn't own his content anymore. You're getting paid $50 million, dude. You don't own your content anymore.
Yeah.
Crowder said no and wanted them to pay him $120 million with him owning his own content.
Shit, yeah.
And with, like no repercussions, no like financial repercussions if he gets them kicked off of YouTube.
Yep.
Insane.
So they couldn't come to a deal.
Yeah, but instead of like counter arguing back and forth, he goes out publicly and releases a recording. He recorded them on the phone without their, and he's just being a huge cunt about it. Like he's trying to spin it as I'm standing up for free speech and big con, like big pharma, big conservatism. Is the implication. They're fine with the dictates of YouTube and the censorship. It's like that is the most like business illiterate way of thinking about it. Like, why would they, they have this thing. Why would they want to get kicked off of? You can still say positive things and not,
Well, firstly, I don't know what he's hoping to gain by doing that.
$120 million.
He's not going to bully them into accepting his counter offer.
No, he's painting this picture of himself as this free speech warrior. He's making it this thing where but that's not what it is. I mean, doesn't seem like what it is to me. It seems like
I don't understand how, listening to Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh, they say exactly the same kind of shit that Steven Crowder says. So if they aren't getting kicked off YouTube, which they must be,
Crowder does tend to be a little bit more controversial. I don't know how much. Yeah, I know you said earlier that you were watching that Change My Mind, which is, I think, Crowder's best.
100%.
He sells himself as a comedy show. Crowder's not funny. He's the least funny person on that show.
I haven't laughed. I've been astonished watching Change My Mind.
But I mean, this is me. This is like the Machiavellian in me. I think that it's all bullshit for the most part. Yeah. I think it's all an attempt to set Crowder up as this new rebel on the right wing. He's going to be this new, right wing figurehead, but he's not. He's not conservative. He's classically liberal.
Yeah.
He's not conservative.
Well, he's a French Canadian.
And he's gay, from what I understand.
I thought that too, but I think he's married. But
that means a whole lot.
I actually do think Steven Crowder would be a terrific addition to the Daily Wire. I think
he would fit right in.
He would fit right in. I think that Steven Crowder is a little bit more edgy and a little bit more handsome version of Matt Walsh. I think that, and listen, I like Matt Walsh.
I'll take Matt Walsh over Crowder.
I like Steven Crowder.
I don't really like
Crowder. I think what Steven Crowder does on Change My Mind is exactly what Matt Walsh did in What Is a Woman.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's Crowder's best segment. He should do that all the time.
Yes. I honestly don't know. I haven't seen much else of Steven Crowder.
He's not good.
Really?
It's not funny. He tries to be a conservative, kind of late night show. Oh, and he's just not funny.
Interesting.
My favorite guy, Owen Benjamin, used to work for Crowder. He used to be a part of it.
Oh,
and so years ago, he exposed. He's been talking shit about Crowder for a long time, and he exposed that Crowder's old co-host, Not Gay Jared, and this other guy they used to have on the show, Sven Computer, they packed up all their shit in the middle of the night and stopped working for Crowder because he's a piece of shit.
Really?
Not Gay Jared was about to have a kid, about to have his first baby, and quit his job, not knowing what he was going to do because he couldn't work for Crowder anymore.
Oh, wow.
Crowder made him sign an NDA, so he can't talk about any of that. Owen Benjamin knew it. He put it out there. And now Candace Owens is going on things talking about information that Owen Benjamin put out there.
Oh, wow.
But Owen Benjamin is persona non grata, dude. You can't,
really,
it's, you should start listening to Owen Benjamin.
I should.
He's going to say a bunch of stuff that's going to make you uncomfortable. But you need to be able to tell when he's joking. Sometimes you also need to you'll need to be maybe he's right. Maybe I should think about that, even though it makes me uncomfortable.
No, I like that. In fact, that's why I bought this book. Somebody told me,
upside down.
Somebody told me, oh shit, sure is. It's called Consciousness in the Social Brain. Somebody told me on Twitter that all of my ideas about consciousness and like the connections I make to God are hokum, and that he used to think that way too. But read this book and I'll understand that it's all social, it's all biological. There's nothing spiritual going on.
Oh, so he's a materialist.
Yes, and
he's retarded.
And I said to myself, no way. And then I was like, look, man, if you just brush it off, if you don't take it seriously and read it, you're just as bad as everybody else. So I bought that fucking book. I'm gonna read it.
Good for you, dude. I'm not interested.
So I'm sorry to say this, but I got a piece so
Actually,
super bad.
Really bad too.
So let's wrap this up.
All right.
Hey, check us out on the Two Tongues Podcast.com. And shout us out. Let us know what you think. What else, Kyle?
Nothing. I gotta pee.
That's
it.
And we're
well, there you have it.